ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute pleasure being with all of you here today. And out of everything that's happening in the summit, this is one of the events that I hold dearest and closest to my heart. It's an event that started with an idea between me and my good friend, Frederick Kemp. And we spoke about what we can do to contribute not just to the current issues of today, but the future. It started first as a geotech center focused on Earth. But we realized that the next frontier is going to be beyond the skies and the atmosphere of this planet. And I must say that Fred was far ahead of the curve, because when we started having this conversation, space was a topic, but it wasn't the hot topic of the day. Everyone was talking about artificial intelligence. Today, we realized that all the new concepts, many of the new companies, all of the, unfortunately, conflicts that are going to happen in the future are going to have a space element to them. So preparing for that future, having a dialogue about it, and ensuring as well that whatever recommendations we put forward to governments are recommendations that are considered is paramount at this moment. I want to share maybe a slight thought on some of the things that we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks and months. One of the people that I met recently started talking about reflecting sunlight back on Earth. And I know that the ministers that are sitting here from the UAE were part of that session. And he was talking about how you can have sunlight on demand. The first thought that I had, whether that is true or not, whether that happens or doesn't, what does that mean for countries? And how would that affect the decisions we make? How would it affect the politics of the here and now? And how should governments react to such a concept? It might happen in the next year or two. We might have a deep-seek moment where something comes out of the blue and really disrupts the things that we know. And I know that these concepts are just going to increase as the cost to going to space goes to becoming extremely affordable. It costs a few $100,000 today to send a payload to space. And that will open new paradigms. That's going to create new concepts and new companies that are going to change the world. We hope that these conversations contribute to more proactive government reactions to it, more proactive regulations, hopefully, and also a more proactive approach to dealing with space, not as an afterthought, but as a primary starting point. Thank you, and I wish you a successful conference.
So good afternoon, I'm Fred Kemp, President and CEO of the Atlantic Council. First and foremost, I want to welcome the U.S. Ambassador to the UAE. It's just an honor for you to be here, and thanks so much for all the work you're doing for our bilateral relations. It's a sign of how important this bilateral relationship is to us that the State Department has sent its best and brightest here, so thank you. It's my distinct honor, also pleasure, to join my good friend, His Excellency Omar Alolama, and to welcome you to the Geotechnology and Policy Forum, part of our ongoing and very fruitful partnership, as Minister Omar said, with the World Governments Summit. I want to commend His Excellency and his team. You really do have a remarkable team for your outstanding efforts, and again, convene such a globally diverse and influential group of government representatives, international organizations, thought leaders, and private sector leaders. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment, because there was a time when space was the domain for big governments, and that's changed radically. The Atlantic Council is known as a Washington, D.C.-based think tank. I think of us as a global do tank. I hate the term think tank, because thinking only gets you so far, and then you have to act. We're driven by a mission of shaping the global future together with partners and allies. And it's a mission clearly shared by the World Government Summit, as today we join forces to promote international cooperation and adopt rapidly growing technologies to improve the lives of societies and shape solutions to global challenges. We, the Atlantic Council, are proud to partner with the World Government Summit team for the third year. Today, the Geotechnology and Policy Forum, led by the Atlantic Council's Geotech Center, will connect technology and policy experts from across the world through future-focused dialogue. At its core, the Geotech Center works to bridge geopolitical and technology policy communities across an array of converging technology pillars, including AI, space, and capacity building, while setting a high bar for impactful, context-driven, and forward-looking policy solutions to the world's most pressing challenges. We like to think of ourselves as a superpower convener, and in the United States, bringing together the tech communities and the policy communities isn't as easy as it is here. One is mostly in California, one is mostly in Washington, D.C., and very often they don't even travel to each other's places. Today's forum builds on Geotech Center's global space portfolio, which navigates complex space issues through purposeful programming, convening global space policymakers and private sector actors to advance dialogue on complex challenges like space sustainability and international cooperation. So here on Earth, our lives are growing increasingly reliant on the technologies in orbit above us. From satellite navigation on our cell phones to recently in California, even as we're talking now, wildfire tracking via infrared cameras. Few aspects of human life today remain unconnected from space-based systems. Meanwhile, innovations in launch systems and a better understanding of space environments have lowered barriers to entry and driven a transformation of the space ecosystem. A market, as I said, was once dominated by large government contracts, has been transformed into an industry-led ecosystem, where commercial entities are spearheading innovations in satellite deployments, reusable rockets, and sustaining life in space. For context, when the UAE was founded in 1971, the first lunar lander reached the moon's surface, 1971. And the Mariner 9 became the first spacecraft to circle another world when it established its orbit around Mars. Humanity had only recently reached the moon 2 years prior as part of the 1969 Apollo 11 mission. Back then, space exploration was a venture for world powers, with nations competing for leadership through ever bolder missions. Today's space market could hardly look more different. Privately funded systems now crowd Earth's orbits. And the first commercial platform landed on the moon just last year. A host of companies, from new entry startups to decades-old heavyweights, now blend the creative potential of science with the unstoppable drive of private enterprise to pursue ever more challenging projects in space. There's probably no other area, except perhaps artificial intelligence, where private-public partnerships are so crucial. This changing dynamic has certainly reaped momentous dividends for life on Earth, but it also requires a renewed focus on developing sustainable systems alongside regulations and norms to preserve space as a peaceful domain with continued benefits for terrestrial systems. We at the Atlantic Council are dedicated to preserving space as a peaceful and safe domain for government and for industry alike. And it's not as simple as it may sound to pull that off. Our forum today builds toward this future by analyzing recent developments in space exploration while looking toward future transformations of space technologies and collaborative projects. So, before we get launched, I want to thank our distinguished panelists for your deep-rooted commitment for this exciting and vital conversation. I'd like to thank this audience for engaging in ever-expanding global space community. And just talking to a few of you, you are as qualified and capable as many of our panelists, so please join in with your questions and with your comments. And I'd like to thank the UAE and World Government Summit partners, His Excellency Omar Alolama and Khalifa bin Hindi. I do want to thank my Atlantic Council colleagues, and forgive me for shouting out their names. I was just saying to the minister before I came in, we brought a group here. We work a lot at the Atlantic Council on promoting the next generation of international leadership. A full one-third of our staff are non-Americans from more than 50 countries in the world, speaking more than 50 languages of the world. And so I'm happy to have with me our Vice President for Technology of the Atlantic Council, Graham Brookie. He runs all the work that we do across the Atlantic Council on technology issues. The Geotech Center Director, Raoul Brenz, who you heard from, William Larrabee, Emily Cespico, Ryan Pan, Caroline Thompson, Marina Maris, and all the Geotech Center team. These are the people who are making this happen. I want you to join me in giving them and then all of our partners from the UAE and yourselves a round of applause.